Okay, so the next chapter, after you finish the hair coloring ops, and you're finished with that hair coloring chapter this go around. So the next book that we have is 111B. We're going to start in 111B.1, which is Perm theory. So chemical texture service. Okay, a perm is a chemical texture service. It involves the process of using physical and chemical means to add waves or curls to your hair until it grows out or until it's cut off. Now it may fade out a little bit faster just because of some, just because of maybe the wads were too loose for the length of the hair, or it wasn't processed long enough. But that's basically what the perm part of chemical texture is. There's many different ways to do chemical texture. So let me pull up these slides here. And we'll start sharing this. Okay, so we have phases, we have history, and we have designs. All right, so think of someone that has curly hair. Can you tell if the curl pattern is natural or if it's permed? Sometimes that's hard to tell. So some people like to get what is known as like a body wave. Okay, it's still a perm or a texture. But what it does is it gives your hair more volume and more fullness, makes it easier to style, holds the style just a little bit longer, but it's not exactly a curly perm. I know when you say perm, everybody thinks back to like the 80s when everyone had that tight, kinky, almost like poodle looking type of hair. Or the minute you say perm, your mind goes to like old lady. You know, only an old lady is going to get a perm or something like that. But there's so many different things that you can do with the texture that doesn't have to be, you know, the old lady stereotype of a perm. So when you combine the service with the cutting service, maybe a little bit of color, you create a whole look, a whole different look that requires added texture. Consider how all of these elements are going to go together. So you've got color, you've got cut, you've got perm. You might, you know, what are you going to do with that, right? Today's perms are really different than that crunchy, frizzy, tightly curled perms that have happened in the past decades. Way different. Technology and science of today makes these perms a lot different than what they used to be. So some areas of hair that clients might request a perm service might be, you know, to add volume and texture, support straight or limp hair, add texture in just selected areas throughout the head, or have the option of wearing their hair curly or wearing their hair straight. I love that option. That's why I get a perm every summer. I love that option of being straight, being curly. If I decide to blow dry it straight and put a curling iron in it, it's going to give me a little bit more volume throughout the day. So by the end of the day, it's just not hanging limp on my head like it does this time of year because of the fog out there. So going back to the history here, history of perming. Permings were invented in the early 1900s. This one guy, Charles Nessler, or Charlie Nessler, or Charlie Kessler, as I've seen it printed sometimes, he invented this perm machine. That little picture right up here, this picture right here, this is an old-fashioned perm machine. So what would happen in this? And you have to think back now in the 1900s. How did women wear their hair? Well, most of it was long. So the only way to wrap that hair would be a spiral. So wrapping your hair around a spiral rod, and they're not they weren't plastic as we know of it today. They were like a metal material. I guess it was metal. I'm not sure, aluminum, something of that nature. It was wrapped in a spiral method from the ends all the way, you know, up to the base, and then it was secured. Then at the end of these long wires here, they have these clamps, and these clamps went over that actual curl. Well, you would put the solution on it, then you would put these clamps on the actual curl. So these machines had lots of clamps because they had to go onto every curl. So this was a very highly alkaline solution. Once they would put this on your hair, They would plug it into the wall. This machine would be plugged into the wall. There'd be settings. I really don't know how those settings worked because, believe it or not, I wasn't alive during that time. So turn it on, zap it, you know, with your electricity and let it process. So after that section was done, of course, it became permanent waving because it was permanent in their hair. It wasn't like they could just shampoo it and it would come off, wash off the next day. It was good for longer hair. It was wrapped in a spiral method, like we said. So it was heated at about 212 degrees on this person's head with the aid of the electricity there. So that was hot. You know, you had to be real careful. I heard stories from some of the older women that would say that like it would burn their head. You know, they got burned from it because, yeah, it's 212 degrees, right? You were definitely getting burned. So in the 1920s now, they came out with wrapping the hair, because now think about it, history goes on. 1920s, flappers come out, women start cutting their hair shorter. So in the 1920s, we came up with this crokinole method of wrapping. Crokinole, right? Croquinole. Crokinole. That's the method that we wrap in today. That's going from those base to the ends, just, you know, wrapping it down like you all love to do. This is also known as an overlap method. Led the way to the use of clamps that were preheated on a separate electric unit and then put on the hair. So it was all these clips that were just heating somewhere else, and then you would take them and add them to the hair to get the curl there. Okay, so that became in the 20s. In the 30s, this guy, Arnold F. Willett, he invented the first cold wave. It was in the Midwest beauty show in Chicago that Ralph Evans and Everett McDowell introduced a heatless technique of perming, which didn't use electricity, right? Used bisulfides, which works on the sulfur bonds of our hair, which break down our disulfide bonds, right? Sometimes clients would have to go home with the wave wrapped hair and then return in the morning to finish the style, which led to the term overnight wave. These things took forever. I mean, could you imagine going around for at least, 12 hours? All of them, even the beginning ones with the machines, they took a long time. You would sometimes, like they said, you'd have to go home and come back the next day. So how would you sleep with all these rollers in your hair? You'd have probably a sore neck. So in 1938, this guy, Ronald Willett, and if you look around sometimes, you can still find Willett neck strips and you can still find Willett in wraps. So from 1938, this guy still has his name on things out there. He invented the first cold wave, and it was called the cold wave because there was no machines. There was no heat, there was no electricity. So it was known as the cold wave. The hair was still wrapped on a rod while the waving lotion or perm solution made of thioglycolic acid or derivative processed the hair without heat. After rinsing, a chemical with an acidic pH, which is a neutralizer, was applied to reform the hair to take the shape of the rod. Okay, so that's pretty much what we do today, but the technology of the solutions have changed tremendously. Okay, in the 1970s, there were these rods that came out known as acid waves or endothermic waves. They had a thioglycolic derivative called glycerol monothioglycolate, which is your active ingredient in your acid wave. It doesn't contain any ammonia. Place the bag on a client's head and put them underneath the dryer. Okay, it's called endothermic because heat is absorbed from the surroundings. And that's kind of how we evolved to what we have today. In ancient times, Egyptians, I was like, what are they called? Ancient Egypt. I was going to say ancientans, but yeah, whatever. Ancient Egyptians wrapped their hair on sticks with mud in the sun. So they're saying possible the sulfur from the mud worked on the sulfur bonds in your hair and made it, stay curly just a little bit longer. Got to think in Egypt, there's probably a lot of mud around there and sand and everything else. So that we have the spiral method that we talked about in 1905, the coconut method in 1926. The overnight wave came out in the 30s. No electricity was used. First cold wave in 1938. Heat waves in the 1970s. Ooh, that's some 70s style there too. Look at that hair. Woo. And then we come to today. So today's perms, they're kind of, what's the word we want to use? Evolved a lot compared to what has happened in the back, and they're still constantly evolving. They have, some of them have no thioglycolate, some have low alkaline, some have no ammonia. There's so many different ways out there. This actual last perm I got was a thio-free perm. It was very nice, actually. And now they even have these digital machines that you just program in the person's hair and put the solution on with a little probe that sets on it. And they do all the work for you, basically. So you just program it in and it'll like beep, beep when the hair is processed. And, you know, it makes it so much easier. But the thing is, you got to know which programs or which type of hair to put in. I was trying to, here we go. I'm trying to find this picture because what I want you guys to do, if you, for extra fun, right? For extra credit fun, is find a picture in the past. I'm sure everyone has one in their family somewhere where you have a bunch of permed hair. I'm going to share this with you because this is a blast from my past that came out from my family over the weekend. My cousin sent this picture, but check out our hair. I mean, we have some great hair in here, some big, great permed hair. Look at all that hair. Do you see me in there? Look at my big hair. So that was all nice and permed right there. That was probably 1991, maybe 92, somewhere in there, big hair. So look through some of the past pictures that you have of your family and see if you can find any permed hair or what you would think would be permed hair, because probably everybody has one somewhere in their family in the past. I'm going to say that they do. So when they talk about perming, perming has two phases. There's a chemical phase and there's a physical phase. Okay, these are the two major phases within the perming. You'll find all the steps within either one of these phases. So the first one we're going to take a look at is the physical phase. Okay, physical, right? It's something that we're actually doing. Physical phase is wrapping. So one of the first things that you should always remember when you get a perm is that, you know, when you're working on your doll heads, you just spray it down or get it wet. But when you actually have a client, you need to shampoo that hair first. And it needs to be shampooed with a clarifying shampoo. The purpose of that clarifying shampoo is to remove any buildups or any, you know, things that might be on that hair that's going to hinder the way that the hair would take. So it's something that, you know, you need to have, definitely would be a clarifying shampoo. So no conditioner. Shampoo the hair, follow manufacturer's directions. I've read some that say leave it on for like 3 minutes, some that say shampoo twice. Just follow the directions of whatever brand of clarifying shampoo that you're using. Then we're going to comb it out. And after we've done our consultation and we've figured out all of the wrapping patterns and just exactly what we're going to do to get our end result after our consultation, then we're going to actually start our physical wrapping. So physical phase, physical wrapping. Hair is wrapped around a perm tool. Now, generally the perm tool is a rod, but it doesn't always have to be a rod. There can be different things that can be used for perm tools. You just want to make sure that they're plastic. Any metal is going to have a weird reaction with the perm solution. So we want to make sure that we're using plastic, whatever it is. Okay, so the resultant texture pattern. So what are we going to get in the end? Well, it has to do with the shape of the tool that you're using and the diameter of the tool that you're using. So what is the shape and how big is it? Okay, is it round? Some of them I've seen are flat, some are round, you know, so which one are you using? And how large or how small around is it? Okay, Wrapping is the key to achieving the final result. So it requires a bit of time. Your skill in performing the physical phase is important. And really, it's about all you do, because the solution does the rest of the work for you. So, you know, wrapping is not that hard. You just have to learn the head, learn the tools and where they get placed on the head, and then it becomes a lot easier for you. And that takes practice. 500 perm practices. I forgot exactly how many times you have to do something that makes you an expert, but let's ask Google. How many times do you have to do something to become an expert? So, in order to become an expert or a master performer in any given field, 10,000 hours of practice is a common rule of thumb. So 10,000 hours of perming and you could become a master.
I could get done half the time.
You what?
I said I could be a master in half that time.
I'm sorry, I had to turn the volume up. Say it again.
I said I could be the master half that time.
Okay. Well, then you still got 4,090 hours to go. Yeah. So what happens now when you get into your chemical phase? Well, after it's been wrapped and you have it all ready to go, like the client's draped and the protective cream is on and the cotton's on and they're draped correctly so that they're not going to get burned or it's not going to drip all over them, we're going to put our perm solution on. Perm solution is also known as a waving lotion. What it is it is a reducing agent. So what happens? Put the perm solution on the hair. That cuticle layer starts to soften. As it's softening, it's opening. So you'll hear the term soften and swell. What that basically means is that the hair is softening or opening. The cuticle layer is opening. As it's opening, it's swelling. And it has to soften in order for that cuticle layer to open. It's going into the cortex layer. It's hitting those disulfide bonds. It is breaking down those disulfide bonds. And that's also causing the hair to swell because it has to open enough to get into those bonds and break them down. When they're broken now, they're taking the shape of the tool that you're using. Okay, so once that is broken down, then we're going to rinse it out. And you do your test strands and you do your test curls. And, you monitor the client, make sure they're comfortable and nothing's dripping in their face and the solution's not burning or scratching or any of that good stuff. When that's completely finished, we're going to go ahead and rinse it. Now, rinsing is just as important as everything else in this process. Okay, so if you've never smelled these solutions, they have a smell. Some of them smell way worse than others. It's not always a pleasant smell either. So when we are going to be rinsing this hair, we want to make sure that we rinse it for a full 5 minutes or more. Now, when you're standing at the shampoo bowl rinsing somebody, 5 minutes is a really long time. And you want to make sure that the water's comfortable for the client. Okay, yes. And then you rinse. And then when you think you're done, you rinse a couple minutes more. 5 minutes is minimum. Okay, if you do not rinse all of that solution out of the hair and you neutralize over the top of it, you're like trapping some of that smell inside that hair. And 3 months from now, when the client, or 2 months from now, when the client washes their hair, they're going to smell that waving solution still in their hair. And it's not pleasant. So make sure that you rinse and rinse and rinse and rinse and rinse and rinse. Okay, so after you rinse it, you want to towel blot it. Okay, once you towel blot the hair extremely well, sometimes if the hair is super porous and it's just holding onto that water, you may want to actually set them underneath the dryer with the hood for a few minutes just to get a lot of that excess moisture out. If there's too much water left in the hair after rinsing, once you apply that neutralizer, it's going to dilute the neutralizing solution and it may not stay. So we want to make sure that we really rinse it well. Neutralizer is known as an oxidizing agent, which means you gain that molecule again of oxygen. It is applied after the perm solution is thoroughly rinsed. And then what it does is it goes back in and rehardens the bonds to take the shape of the tool that you've had in the hair. Once that's processed, and most manufacturers have a processing time on that of like 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, you remove the rods and you have your new shape. So the perm solution and neutralizer are the two main ingredients in a perm. Now, you could possibly have a additive in the box, but it just depends on the type of solution that you're using. But those are the two main ingredients that you need to have: a waving solution and a neutralizer. Okay. I went too far. Okay. So now, how do you figure out what you're going to do for your client? Okay, well, just like everything else, there's like a formula that you need to use, just like in color and everything else, so that you can keep consistent results. What you want to think about is, what's the existing and desired texture? So what do they have? What do they want? Okay. What is the form or the shape of the haircut? Are you cutting the hair before? Are you going to give them a haircut afterwards? What are we looking at as far as the haircut and the final style goes? Where are you going to put this texture? Is it going to be all over the head? Is it going to be mid-strand? Is it going to be just at the scalp? Is it going to be just at the ends? Because you can put it in all those places. So where are you going to place this texture? And then, which design principle are you going to use to reflect the final desired result? Which means, are you going to do all of the tools the same color and same size? Are you going to alternate? Are you going to like skip one? I mean, what are you going to do to achieve that result? So we look at existing texture and the degree of texture. How much texture do they have? So when they're talking about texture, they're also talking about, is the hair fine, medium, or coarse? Is it straight, wavy? And they want more curl, less curl? I mean, what are we looking at when it comes to that texture? So when you talk about texture patterns, you know, tight curls, medium curls, loose waves, spiral curls, but ask the client, you know, have them show you a picture. Because their idea of a medium curl and your idea of a medium curl may be two totally different ideas. So let's make sure that we know exactly what we're talking about. A lot of times when people have brought in pictures and said, oh, I want my hair permed like this, what they're showing me is a curling iron or, you know, some type of a thermal tool. They're not showing me a chemical texture, and it is a little bit different. So we're looking at what the client has, what the client wants. What is the type of hair that the client has? Where are you going to put this texture, and how are you going to go about doing it? That's basically what we need to know when we're getting ready to start with our client. So when we talk about our wrapping now that we figured it out, what are we going to do? Are we going to do an overlap, or are we going to do a spiral? Now, people that come in with hair that's generally, you know, shoulder length, it's a little bit too short to do a spiral on. Spiral is usually done on longer hair. Okay, so your overlap or your coconut technique produces curls and waves, achieves base lift and strong end curl, best suited for short to medium hair. Then we have our spiral technique, which produces elongated texture patterns, achieves minimal to no base lift, and is suited for medium to longer hair. Then when we start looking at the form of the hair, this is the cut, right? How are we going to alter the form of the haircut? Remember, the tighter the curl, the shorter the length. So when that hair is long and they want a tight curl and they don't want to cut anything, you know, or they want to cut like 3 inches off, it's going to appear shorter than what it was. So you got to think about that. The curlier the hair, the more it's going to shrink up. So how is this going to alter the form of a haircut? Is it going to be shorter? Is it going to give you a weight line? What are we looking at? And so this one right here shows you just some different alternatives of where the texture could be placed. So do you place your texture in a zone? The hair's short, yeah, it may just be at the top that you're going to put some curl in. Or do you put it just at the base? Do you put it just at the ends? Where do we do it? Not everybody has to be done the same way. Okay, so when we look at zones, the top is real popular with people that have shorter hair, right? It's just a specific zone. It's going to emphasize that area of a hairstyle, add subtle support to specific areas, and create a very bold statement. Adding texture to the fringe can add volume and height. Add texture to the interior to elongate the form and create the height. So just the top, just the fringe. Some people I know too have like curly hair underneath, but the top of their hair isn't curly. So some of them just might perm that top layer and leave the bottom because it's already curly. You gotta think about this. Now, where do we place it? Along that whole strand, at the base, or away from the base. This base perming, or sometimes they call it a root perm. I was watching some very interesting videos on this last weekend, I think. So maybe it's making a comeback. Okay, so entire strand is a classic perm. Base creates just lift and volume. Now remember, it's only gonna stay till it grows out though. And then away from the base gives you the end perming. And then which direction do you go? Because you don't have to wrap it in the traditional wrapping patterns. You can go away from the face, towards the face, from a side part, all back, all forward, whatever you decide to do. It customizes the perm service, and you can create texture that your client wants. You can accentuate their haircut and make it easy for your stylist or for your client to style their hair at home. So there's a lot of different things that, you can do. Think outside of the box on this. So design principles is a term that you may have heard before, and tool choice, right? So with our design principles, we have repetition, alternation, progression, and contrast. If you use these, it's going to help you in your color, adding, doing a color pattern. It's going to help you doing a styling pattern. It's going to help you doing a chemical pattern. It's going to help you doing a lot of things because this helps you keep consistency when the client comes back the next time. So if we look at this first one known as repetition, what we have is repeating the same shape and diameter throughout the whole head. This creates repetitive and consistent texture. So, it's all the same size, okay? All the same color, all the same length, it's all the same. That's your repetition. When we go to alternation, it is repeating or alternating the diameters. So, and this is consistent through the whole head of, one larger one, one smaller one, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 throughout the whole head. That's your alternation. When we talk about progression, it would be, small, medium, and large, or large, medium, and small. It's progression. It adjusts to different lengths. A lot of times you might even do progression and not even know it if someone's hair is shorter in the back because you have larger ones on the top. You kind of switch to middle ones when it starts getting a little bit shorter. And then when you get to the back where it's really short, you start using even smaller ones. But that is progression. And then when you have contrast, this is extreme differences or complete opposites. So you have, red and black, completely opposite. You have straight and curly, completely opposite. So these are what the contrast is going to do. Okay, so true or false? Perming involves the process of using physical and chemical additions to add waves or curls to hair, or actions, sorry. Perming involves the process of using physical and chemical actions to add waves or curl to the hair. True or false?
True.
True, yes. True or false? When your client oh my gosh, can't read. When your client wants a look that requires added texture, consider how all the design elements of form, texture, and volume will work together. Oh, they made that one tricky. Okay. The first heated permanent wave machine was invented in 1905 by the spiral method involved wrapping hair from the blank to the blank. The overlap method is also known as acid waves contain a thioglycolic derivative called perms that generate their own heat through a chemical reaction are called. Two major phases of perming are physical phase and the added texture expands form and creates the illusion of shorter. You can apply design principles throughout an entire style to textures within zones or along a okay, so we got true, false. You know, that question number 2, volume, it was thrown in there just to make that one tricky. All of that was true up until they put the word volume in there. Okay. Charles Nessler, scalp to ends, Crokinole method. Did anyone get all of those right?
No.
Because if you did, good job. Here's the next ones. Acid waves. Glycerol monothioglycolate, huge word. Exothermic perms. Chemical phase, lengths, strand. Oh, I would have missed that because I totally read number 7 wrong. I would have said endothermic perms. Anyone get those all right? This one, miss 2, no? Okay. So let's go back over here and take this learning challenge. So what we want to do here now is know that we want to know that in 1905, Charles Nessler made the first perm machine. In 1938, the first cold wave machine was invented, or the first cold wave perm was invented by Arnold Willett. Acid waves appeared on the market in the 1970s, which contained a thioglycolic derivative called glycerol monothioglycolate. There are 2 phases involved when performing a perm, a physical phase and a chemical phase. Physical phase is when you wrap the hair, chemical phase is the chemicals. The design decisions made prior to a perm service are establishing existing and desired texture, the type of wrapping technique to use, the form of the haircut, where you're going to place the texture, the direction you're going to wrap it, and the design principles that you're going to use. Okay, so 2 types of wrapping are overlap or crokinole and spiral. Texture placement can be along the strand or within a zone. Direction is where we're going to go towards the face, away from the face, from a side part. What are we going to do there? And the design principles and tool choice determines the shape and the diameter of the tool you'll use to create the new texture pattern. Okay, so when we start with number 1, in 1926, the method of wrapping hair from ends to scalp was created. Ends to scalp now. What is another name for that method? What do you think? Spiral, overlap, clamp, none of the above. Okay.
None of the above.
Nah, I'm gonna go with that one. What is the active ingredient used in the first cold wave? Bisulfides, sodium hydroxide, thioglycolic, or glycerol thioglycolic? First cold wave. Anyone have a clue? Dun, dun, dun. Don't be shy. Give it a try. Okay, I'm gonna go with that one.
E.
The physical phase of perming includes physical now, strand testing, neutralizing the hair, applying the perm solution, or wrapping the hair around the perm rods. We're talking physical. So everything else here has to do with the chemical. So we're gonna go with that one. The reducing agent in the chemical phase of the perming is the neutralizer, the conditioner, the protein chain, or the perm solution. Okay, so if you read this question, you can figure out the answer. The reducing agent. What do we put on the hair that reduces the hair's natural texture? Not a neutralizer or a conditioner or a protein, so it's got to be that one. Yeah. What is applied to reharden and fix the hair into a new wavy or curly shape? Not a shampoo.
Activator.
Remember, this is also called, a neutralizer can also be called a stabilizer or a fixative. What are two basic wrapping techniques for rotating strands around the perm tool? Twist and overlap, wave and overlap, spiral and overlap, crokinole and overlap. Come on, this is a fun word to say, crokinole. Come on, Nick, I know you know that word. I know you do. Yeah, you know you do too. During a perm service, added texture expands the form, causing what? The illusion of longer length, the illusion of shorter length, the form to be more apparent, or the form line and weight area to shift downward. Remember, it's expanding out, so it is shrinking up. Positioning texture in one or more specific areas or zones of the head or along only a certain portion of the hair strand is called positioning texture in one or more specific areas or zones of the head or along only a certain portion of the hair strand is called zoning, strand placement, overlapping, or texture placement. Now, the thing that throws this question off right here when you're reading it is when I first read it, positioning texture in one or more specific areas or zones of the head, I'm thinking it's zonal, right? But then it says, or along only a certain portion of the hair strand. So now we've got strands and we have zones. So what is that going to do? It's not going to be zoning because we have strands. It's not going to be strand placement because we have zones. Overlapping is, right, the way we roll. So texture placement. When creating a perm that will create a repetitive texture, the progression of rod diameters. Okay, no, we're just talking about repetitive here. So how are we going to get a progression out of repetitive? Alternating, same thing. Positioning textures in selected areas or same shape and diameter of tool throughout. We're repetitive, right? So which one are we going with? Which design principle can be used to create a large to small or small to large texture pattern? Small to large or large to small? Contrast, do you remember what contrast is? Desirable relationship of opposites, that's the definition, but Yeah, contrast, rectangle, alternation, progression.
Progression.
Mm-hmm. Right. Let's see what I got. 90. Ooh, what'd I miss? Bum, 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 bum. What? Or spiral and overlap. Oh, because crokinole and overlap are the same thing. Okay, duh, right? Spiral and overlap, because crokinole and overlap are the same thing. Two basic wrapping techniques. Spiral. Okay, well, that was dumb on my part.
That was a super tricky one.
Yeah, because you would think it would be that. See, it's all about just reading it. If I would have read it and paid more attention, I probably would have got that. But hey, got 190%. That's passing. So good on that. We're definitely good on that. So those of you that have access, go on, if you haven't done the smart notes, do those already. Do the learning connections. If you haven't done those, watch. All right, so, oh, I gotta move you guys out of the way. I can't read this. So small. Okay, so what's this say? Put the appropriate blank in. Hair wrapped from ends to scalp, also known as the overlap method. All right, which one of these goes there? Come on, somebody knows. I know you do.
Crokinole.
Yeah. All right, so pop that up there. Here we go. Made first real breakthrough with heat place per, oh, wait, oh, it's hard to read that. Made first real breakthrough with heat permanent wave machine. Which one of these goes over there?
The bottom one.
Yep. Oh.
And then it's spiral.
Wrapping the hair around the perm tool. Okay. Come on. What? Oh, no, it's not. Wrapping the hair. I didn't read the other two. Wrapping the hair around the perm tool. Which one of these?
Visible. Visible.
Yeah, visible. Okay. Applying perm solution and neutralizer.
That one.
Yeah, that one's chemical. Oh, come on. Okay. And then elongated texture pattern. Okay. Yay. See, they don't even let you get it wrong. So, okay. So which one of these is a corresponding image? Contrast, progression, alternation, repetition. So which one is this?
That's
oh, come from here. It's that one. Okay. So then we got right here, all the same. What's all the same? Contrast, repetition. Which one's opposites?
contrast.
And then that just leaves alternation for our last one. So see, that was not even hard, right? So those of you that have access, go ahead and do that. Oh, what are they? Not sure what I just did to your pictures over here, but I did something. All right, so let me get back over here. .2. How did I get to 10 and 11? Where's 0.2? Okay, let's try this again. That's weird. I skip from 1 to 10. Where's everything in between?
Miss Connie, I finished 110B completely this morning
Nice. I'll mark it down.
with the lesson challenges.
Perfect. Good job. It's going to make me go through all of this since it wouldn't give me the other ones. Okay. No, that's 10. I need 11. Seemed like we were doing 10 for a long time. Okay, 1B.2. There we go. You guys all ready for Christmas? Everyone got everything you needed? I'm sure I forgot something somewhere, but oh well. Oh. Okay, so now we know our consultation. Let's go back to the consultation portion of it. You have like client record cards that you can use for client consultations, right? They sort of put on the client record card for you all of the different things. Now you can buy them already pre-made, or you can make your own. I have an actual book that has some already, pre-made on there. But basically what it says is there's areas for you to write down on the card, things like what the existing pattern, like the existing curl pattern, hi, this is V, Miss V, she's from Tracy. She's visiting me today.
Ain't gonna bother you.
Oh, I have it in a different folder. I'll just take it because I want to work on the time cards. Thank you. Okay, so what you want to make sure that you put on your client record cards and during your consultation is when you're looking at the existing and desired hair texture. All right, what's the length of the hair? They have little people on there that you can mark the length of the hair. You can, write it down. What is the amount of curl they want? What color rods are you going to be using? Which sergeant? Are you cutting the hair before the perm? Or are you cutting the hair after the perm? Where are you going to put the texture at? How are you going to put the texture? Are you going to weave the bases? Because that's a really advanced technique that's really modern for shorter hair techniques to blend from the shorter links to the long links, just giving the volume on the top. Are you doing, tight curls? Are you doing loose curls? All of that stuff is on a client consultation form for you. So we want to make sure that we really keep good records when we start this. So make sure that you have the client's contact information. I mean, if it's a Facebook or an Instagram or, whatever is used out there, make sure that you have, some way to contact them, an address, something that sets them apart from everybody else. You want to make sure that you know what you're using, how much you charged, and what you did. Any other side notes you need to put on there, but make sure that you have your consultation form thoroughly filled out. Hi.
On Tuesday, Wednesday, what is it? Are they watching the video or do they?
They do live Zooms. Live Zooms.
Live Zooms, because this guy's going to return Brett Nettles. So what do I need to do?
Do you have to have that on paperwork, or you just put it in a message, like a notes on your phone?
You can do notes on your phone too. I actually have an actual book that I write in, plus I keep notes on my phone, because if somebody texts me and they're just like, hey, I'm over here and I want this done, and I'm just like, oh, what do they get done? Because you're not going to remember everything. So any way that you have to keep records, that's how you should do it. I mean, if you have put it on your tablet, put it on your phone, put it on your computer, write it down, whatever, but at least do 2 different ones, because, sometimes things get lost. So at least keep double records just to make sure that you have them, because, it's important to keep your records and keep them up to date, you know, that way you'll be able to know exactly. And then even when they finish, like you finish with their service and they're saying, oh, maybe I want it a little bit, you know, darker or a little bit lighter or a little bit shorter or a little bit curlier or a little bit looser or something, write that on there when they leave. Because, you know, when something's freshly done, it's always a little bit different than it is a couple days later. You know, a fresh haircut, right? It's always different a couple days later. You know, fresh chemical service is always different a couple days later. So make sure you write down their feedback. And then when they come back in, say, oh, you know, last time you said it was too curly and, you know, you want to have the same thing done, or do you want it a little bit looser? Okay. If you used a repetition pattern on that time and they wanted it a little bit looser, you might go to an alternation pattern because that's just going to make it one size larger. Unless they want something completely different, you know, then you would maybe go just to the whole different rod or tool size. But with this, you know, it gives you something to fall back on. So you're not just like stuck going, oh, I don't remember what I did last time, you know, because that's, yeah, we don't want to be stuck like that. We want to remember everything.
Okay.
That way you have it. So how much time do we have? Oh, we're out of time. Look at that. All right. So look for the pictures. Look for your family pictures and text us in a picture. I would like to see that. I think that would be fun. So if you have a family picture laying around with people that have big hair, you know, text it in so we can look at it. It's fun to look back at those pictures and be like, wow, look at that hair. You might even have some from yourselves, maybe not even curled hair. You may have a picture of yourself when you were like in elementary school or something where, you know, your hair is fun. So it'd be interesting to see those pictures being sent in. Oh, Amanda, look at your doggy. Hi, doggy. Cute. Hi, doggy. I know my dog was all curled up with me yesterday. I was watching TV last night and he came and jumped in the chair next to me and I threw my blanket over him because I had a blanket over my legs, you know, because it was kind of cold. And then next thing I know, he's all the way under the blankets and I had to like untie him to get him out. He was warm. I was like, what are you doing? He wouldn't even budge.
Yeah, he took off his jacket like halfway, so I was trying to fix it.
Yeah, I don't have clothes for my dog. I guess maybe I should. I don't know. I kind of thought he had a fur coat on. He might not get warm, but I guess I was wrong. Oh, a little Christmas one. How cute. All right, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Be safe out there.
Later.